Hi, Jeff.
Hey, we're going to try this again. So, Pete, tell me all about what I was the most incredible football player you ever played against in your life.
So I want to remind everybody, because you said you don't like to talk about. Can you hear me?
I can hear you good. I'm waiting to hear just a comment real quick that they heard
So
you.
just real quick, when Jeff and I played against each other as a Cincinnati Bearcat, I think you guys ended up with minus yards rushing for the game.
Yeah, but that was on the other side of the line. That wasn't on my side of the line. On my side of the line, we had like 438 yards rushing. It was the other
Well,
side of the line. Okay, it sounds like everything's working good now. So
awesome.
I
Okay.
apologize. So you're gonna have to talk real fast now and make up for you're coming behind in the race. So get going.
No, I'm used to that. I'm used to that. So I heard you talking about different things, and listening to your kind of your pre-talk, talking about that. I'm not coming from that perspective, but in my just a little bit about the genesis of my world. I grew up with people that had alcohol and substance abuse problems. I had uncles, I had friends, I've lost friends, and even starting drinking at a young age, it really affected how I saw myself and how I saw relationships, and even moving on to college and a little bit in the NFL. Probably one of the reasons I quit, because we talk about those underlying reasons of substance use and abuse, is relates to kind of self-image, right? So understanding what that was, I think as I got older and I became a therapist, I reverse engineered it and figured out what was going on. So it was kind of my impetus to become a therapist and learn, the underlying causes of a lot of these things, which is probably, again, why I became a trauma therapist.
Do you
Because
do,
go ahead.
do you have spouse? I mean, any of your brothers, sisters? I don't know what your family situation is, and don't give away family secrets. But do you have any siblings with alcohol issues?
I have some very close, yes, I have very
Okay.
close family members with alcohol issues. I remember actually being recruited. I had an uncle who was driving me home one night from a trip to Syracuse visiting the university for college, and he was so drunk, I was literally grabbing the wheel on the way home. And so kind of understanding in that world, and then I went to college, and I don't know how you can relate to this, but, every weekend turned into, getting drunk, and, our solutions, our short-term solutions for dealing with anxiety, and again, anger is your secondary emotion. We're basically drinking alcohol and scrapping. Now, thankfully, I was good enough at sports, so that gave me an outlet, but it was, again, a short-term solution to a long-term problem. So I had to learn over time that wasn't going to be the solution. In fact, I was thinking about that because, you and I played against each other. I remember being in the Citrus Bowl. I don't think I've ever shared this with you. I remember being in the Citrus Bowl, and I'm standing across this player from Clemson who was like 6'7", and we were sweating so bad down in Orlando, Florida. And I must have been, from the night before, I must have been sweating alcohol, because the guy was so big. He said he just wants to pop my head off and drink me.
Been
This was the second or third play of the game. I'm like, oh my god, I'm never gonna make it through this game.
been there,
You
done
know,
that. Yeah.
right?
So, but
And then
Pete, the anger issues and all those, but there is, you being a guy that does not have a drinking problem, you have a beer and I have a beer. How our bodies react are completely different. I
yes,
believe that. I honestly believe that, because I go into, I gotta have another, and I've never said I've had enough. I've never said I'm good. No more for me. I'm fine. Never said those words when it comes to drinking. I haven't even said those words when it comes to food very often, but
right.
mostly, with drinking, I've never had enough.
Well, yeah, we're all kind of and whether it's through epigenetically born with a certain level of you and I talk about strength or resiliency or all these different things. And I heard you talking with your last guest the other night about white knuckling it.
Right.
Some people have the ability to do that. Most people do not. Most people do not. And the effort that it takes to white knuckle something for that long, then other quality areas of life suffer. So, not having a plan. So in our cases, yes, we're different people. So we have different, levels of resiliency based on different levels of stimulus that come into our lives. So, in my world, and you're a little bit familiar with my world, I'm a values-based therapist, which means that, and I think you put that map up, that mindfulness action plan is one of the things that I go through with my clients that I work with, or my coaching clients as well, is that, if you don't have a plan of action, and we'll get back to that first question, if you don't know why you're doing something, so you're right. At the end of the day, what happened to me as a kid, maybe something I need to process. With more of my really heavily involved, like sexual abuse clients and things like that, we do need to go back there. We do need to kind of explore that and bring resources back to that young person.
Because
However,
I'm one of those guys that, this is not a couch session for me, but I had such a happy, normal upbringing. I wasn't abused. I can't look at any trauma that I had. I don't know. It's one of those where I would love to blame it on something, but I just blame it on the fact that, my thing. Now, I dealt with anxiety, Pete, but that came in well after I was established as a professional drinker. I loved how it made me feel. I loved, now maybe those were the anxiety and the fear and the insecurities that I know I did have, but there was no trauma that I was running from. I just liked myself a whole hell of a lot more, and I thought everyone else liked me a whole hell of a lot more too when I was drinking.
Right. So again, back to that kind of level of resilience or constitution that we have, we're all wired differently. So you might have started on a scale of 0 to 10, like at a 7. So you might be wired tighter than, me, for example, right? And you've been able to adjust that. You would adjust that, again, that short-term solution, you would adjust that with alcohol. So when you're firing at a 7 and you're drinking and now you're a 4. I heard you talk about drinking before you went out to be social drinker.
Right.
You would have to drink, you'd have to knock that level down. And again, I'm just using therapeutic talk here, but you'd have to knock that level down just to get to the social level to talk to somebody. No, you don't have to have experienced trauma, but how you experience yourself is the key. It's not the experience that the world kind of throws at you. It's how you see yourself in the world, which is the insight type of stuff that I generally work on with my folks.
So when I come to you now, what scares me is I think this could go on for 38 hours and everything would be fantastic. But I'm talking to you as a counselor, and I'm standing in front of a liquor store, and the flashing Bud Light sign, buy one, get 7 free, is flashing in my eyes. And I also know that so I don't want to drink this moment, but my body is twitching, and I got the money, the cash in hand. And I also don't want to drink in a year from now.
Right.
So if you fix it. Fix it, Pete. We can hand me the pill, would you? Okay.
Right. So the fix it, right? I heard you say that in the last thing, is that fix as if there's something broken. I come from the type of therapy that I do, it's called transdiagnostic, right? It's called acceptance commitment therapy, is one of those things. So we're human beings. Our physiology will crave certain things. You and I probably, you're a big lineman, we crave sugary things. A lot of people with alcohol crave those type of things, or those feelings that we get, when we experience those things. If you don't have a blueprint or a framework to work from, if this is, you're trying to white knuckle it, there has to be some either internal or external resources that you can go to. So AA, for example, is the faces and places and spaces type of thing, where you replace those challenges. So you call your sponsor, you go to a meeting, you replace, instead of a bar, you go to a friend. So you have to have some resources. There's really, other than white knuckle, there's not a lot you can do if you have not engaged with your stuff to reach out to somebody, something, or someone.
I take notes. I've got a journal where I call it my toolbox, but I'm putting in, I've got 25 numbers of people I can call at a moment that understand, that are in the same boat, that I can call and say, hey, get my mind off of this stuff, or, talk me off of this ledge. I've got that. I've got the meetings I do. Now I come from an AA background, but the people that are on this call with us, it's a mix, and we're looking for answers, not for titles or whatever. We're just trying to figure out what works for any of us and put it together for us. But one of
my go-tos is there's a woman out of New York City named Melissa Tiers, Tiers, right? And she has this, and I did it. She's basically hypnosis and mind type of changer. She actually is very critical of therapy, which I appreciate, being a therapist. Because, we tend to always want to go into the process and the meaning and all this other stuff behind it. But she has a thing called an anti-anxiety toolkit. She's all over YouTube. Therapists go to her, psychologists, psychiatrists, doctors. They send people to this woman who actually, have end-stage cancer, substance use and abuse problems. And so she has this anti-anxiety toolkit book. It's really cheap, but she's all over Facebook. So she has these things, she calls them neural interrupters. So she has, helps you stop these cravings, right? So that might be another thing you can put in your toolkit. Helps you stop these cravings. And again, it's very difficult to get into on a call like this, but the ability to actually notice what's going on in your body. I heard you say yesterday, actually, Jeff, for example, you said you get this knot in your stomach. Right. So, Melissa.
Yeah. When I'm craving beer, or if I've had a beer and to not have another one. Yeah. It's not just a mental thing for me. I feel it in my body. And that's why I say there's definitely a physical, they call it an allergy, at least in AA always refers to it. It's an allergy. We're allergic to just like people react to a bee sting in the wrong way. Alcoholics react to alcohol in a wrong way. There is something that happens to my physical body when I have a beer.
Well, yeah, and the science is telling us now, right? We're kind of learning this stuff with those functional MRIs and all these different things. Is that the vagus nerve is something called the polyvagal theory. We kind of get neuroception, which is different than perception. Our nervous system notices something first. And the only job of this vagal nerve is to tell us, do we feel safe or unsafe? And then it fires up to our brain and tells us, and it creates these feelings, which is the next, kind of stage of our brain, and thoughts, feelings, and then we get this fight, flight, or freeze response. So if we can break that chain or hit that chain as early as possible in the gut, right? So something like a knot in our stomach, right? I would use something, conversational hypnosis. I use hypnosis. I use really metaphor type of language. What has to happen to a knot, right? And this is some of the stuff that Melissa Tiers and other people that I ascribe to and I find successful teach, right? And again, when I say this stuff, this is the stuff that I do. There are multiple ways to do that. And whatever speaks to your folks out there, whatever works, again, it's the hook or crook, right? Whatever works for somebody, right. You keep going at it. AA works for a lot of people. AA doesn't work for some people. I know the guy that I ascribe to, he works with sexual abuse. People have been abused by priests, for example.
I thought you were going to say by AA people, but yeah, go ahead.
Exactly, yeah. So his therapy, and he's a well-known guy named Danny Moran. His therapy is to actually, and again, this is therapy, so this is not, it's different than AA. You walk through and you teach people to notice, like, and I heard you say, I have a thought, right? Well, I have thoughts too, but we have thousands and millions of thoughts that go through our head every day. Why are you attaching to that thought? So I teach my clients that I can have a thought, but I don't have to attach to that thought. I can experience a feeling, but that's not who I am. I even tell my clients, I said, am I a therapist? They're like, well, yeah. I go, no, that's what I do for a living. That's what I'm trained to do. I'm Pete. Right? And Pete will come through all the time. I have my therapist hat on, right? Right now I have my hat on for this meeting here. I know you through football and some other avenues. And, so I want to do this stuff because I've experienced, the reason I learned hypnosis is because I want to help people quit smoking because my mother passed away from smoking. I have friends and family members that had alcohol problems. I did have an alcohol problem when I was younger. It informs me in a different way. the reason I use a values-based type of therapy is that it's not what I was or what I want to be. It's how do I want to be right now? And if you look at that kind of map, that mindfulness action plan, it teaches you how to be present. So when you're sitting in front of there, instead of white knuckling it, you just learn to let go of that thought. You learn to feel that feeling and not avoid that feeling by grabbing that bottle or those drugs or whatever those things are. Right. You know. So,
well, that's one thing that I've tried is that I used to, you hear people, and I was guilty of this at first in recovery where, you know, hey Jeff, how you doing? How was the weekend? Oh, great. Did you any problem? No, didn't even think about it. No issues. No, I felt great. Oh, people were drinking. Didn't bother me at all. That's such a crock. You know, the truth is I'm lying about true emotions, true feelings. Yeah, it did look good. I did want to drink with them. It looked enjoyable. I'm not going to deny those are real feelings. Now, what I'm trying to do, instead of pretend they're not there, ignore them, accept them, say, okay, that's based upon past. That might be something that does look, but let's think this thing through first. Well, you
know what? That stuff works. I mean, this stuff works to quell feelings, right? We know it works, but the problem is it only works in the short term. So, and what I just heard from you, for example, I'm not going to be your therapist, but this idea of like two mats. So part of you, right, is like, oh, of course, I'm fine. You know, it doesn't bother me at all. And this other part of you screaming on the inside. So
True,
you're acting
exactly.
in and you're acting in and acting out at the same time. So I look at, okay, let's do it. What if you were to actually say, you know what, this sucks. You know, this is really hard. And I'd appreciate, you know, maybe you could help me out a little bit. And you're actually reaching out to other people.
To me, that brings
that you feel safe with.
Yeah, that's the whole thing, because I don't want to reach out to and that's why I love this forum, this group, whatever, because the people that are on here, the people that I deal with in my meetings or dealing with on this show, I can talk to any of them comfortably and not worry about being judged or whatever. It's a safe thing. They've all felt the same way. And that's critical for me.
Well, you know, it's funny. Well, yeah, right. So even that idea of non-judgment, right? So I would actually challenge that, and I'll tell you why. I teach an exercise I call Leaves on the Stream, where you just have a thought, right? So, you know, when I work with my clients, or, you know, I have them, you know, I do a guided imaging thing. I have them sit by a river, you know, this flowing thing, and you imagine a leaf just floating by, right, in the fall time, nice day. And then what you do is you practice putting a thought on that leaf. You say, okay. For example, many of my clients, they laugh when I say this. I say, so for example, you might be having a thought right now is, frickin' Pete is going through this stupid exercise again, right? Put that on a leaf. Just notice that thought, right? You don't have to just watch it. Now watch it float down the river, right? Oh my God, I can't breathe right now. Notice that feeling. Put it on a leaf, right? Notice any judgment. Notice any self-judgment, right? Because think about what alcohol is, right? It quells that judgment. It quiets that judgment down.
That's exactly it. It quiets everything that's screaming in my body, whether it's anxiety or fear or regret or guilt, or, you know, you go down the list. It silences all those, all the negative things I don't want to deal with, or I hate dealing with, I'm uncomfortable dealing with. It numbs them temporarily.
Yeah, and I'm like, and how's it working for you, right? That's always the right.
Not so
how's
good.
It working for you? Yeah, and I always do the mirror test. I go grab a mirror and tell me how it's working for you. You know.
Yeah.
And I encourage clients to tell me, you're an asshole. Okay, I'm an asshole. Now what? What's that to do with you being here right now?
So I love what you're saying, because it's all, but it's still scares me of my ability to do it in a pinch. Driving home on a Friday, and Elizabeth just said, oh, I got to go out of town for whatever, and I just got yelled at by my boss, and I just found out something else, and they just called and said my car is going to need $1,000 worth of new, whatever in it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just thinking, son of a, I don't want to deal with this crap. And then I see the mini mart flashing Bud Light sign, and that's where I mean, I'm just talking for myself, Pete, but that's when for me to sit there in that parking lot and put all those emotions and try to just let them float down the thing. Yeah, that's. I'm not trained to do that in a drop of a hat. I'm not prepared to do it. I don't know if I'm too lazy to practice that so that I can do that at the drop of a hat.
Let me ask you something, because you played football, right? So I won't say the score of our game.
Easy.
Right? Our senior year, right? So can you imagine if you guys didn't practice all season, right? And you didn't train, you didn't lift, you didn't run, you didn't know the plays, and then you showed up at Beaver Stadium with 90,000 people there, and we just lost to Alabama, and we're going to take it out on you.
Yeah.
So what do you expect the score is going to be?
Right.
So if you don't practice these things, if you don't have these resources, if you don't have a framework or a blueprint of what you're going to do, then of course you're going to buy that beer. But if you know, right, through practice that, again, you have a sponsor and you say, let's go for a drive. If you know that's one of your triggers, grab your sponsor. Let's go for a drive. Let's sit right in front of the convenience store.
That's a great point. That's a great point.
Let's sit right in there, and then I'm going to freak out for a minute, right? And then, and then when I say it's time to go, or I need some support, or maybe not, maybe just sit with me. We could just sit there and look at it, and then drive away. You do that once, difficult. You do that twice, it's a little less difficult. You do it 1,000 times, you drive by it. That's a
great point. Part of that comes, not even having a sponsor, but having my wife with me or friends that know what I'm going through in those situations for accountability. But I love that. I mean, for me to do that, I need to have, like you're saying, a sponsor with me, someone to talk it out, to talk out the emotions and actually get them out on the table, but also just to have almost as a safety net, I want to say.
Well, what you're doing is you're literally untying that knot in your stomach with somebody there.
Yeah.
Because if you don't have anybody else to untie that knot, then it's just going to get tighter and tighter. And another way to untie it is to drink.
I think what I love about what you're saying is because now you're talking real life to me versus theory, and I'm just one of these guys that the theory about how to. I will not tonight get in the lotus position, and I just know me. I won't do those things. But what you're talking about is real life, and I could actually do that. I could see myself. That would be very beneficial to me, where I can see immediate help by doing that. I love that. That's a great point.
Yeah, I spend a lot of money. I go to all these trainings because one of my values is to be a good therapist or a good coach. And so I spend a lot of money doing that.
Can you send Tom Mabe some of those links to where it gets some of this education? Because
yeah, he's just kind of flying by the seat.
Oh yeah, it's pretty bad. No,
yeah. So my main question to all these theorists are, how do I apply it? And some of them, and many of them can't. Well, that's a clinical question. Well, if I can't apply it, then what am I even here for? Because it's just a theory. So, and it has to be able to integrate in your life. So when I teach mindfulness, right, I cannot stand that term personally because it's so overused. I teach practical mindfulness. I teach presence. And if someone says, comes to my office, or I'm maybe sitting in the car with them at that parking lot, and they're like, "Oh, I'm okay." I go, "How do you know?"
Yeah, I don't know the answer. If I had told you, no, I'm good, and you said, "How do you know?" Well, I'm not sweating. I'm not. Okay. I'm not bunched up inside. I'm not flipping a coin of whether or not. I don't feel like I'm hyperventilating, lying to you right now. I actually feel relaxed.
All right, so imagine we get out of the car right now and we walk towards that door.
Yeah, I think. See, I guess I would be monitoring myself of, am I thinking about the beer, or am I feeling relaxed, or am I feeling tense? Am I feeling keep your head up and just don't look over at the beer cave? I'm going to pretend, because Pete is with me, that put a fake smile on my face and say, yeah, I really feel good. But inside, am I knotted up a little bit? Am I wanting just to grab my Diet Pepsi and get the hell out of here? I don't know. I can sense there'd be a whole bunch of those kind of emotions.
Right. So notes going back is you're kind of navigating between should I tell this therapist this or should I tell him not, right?
Yeah,
I've lied. At the end of the day, right? You're fooling yourself, right?
I've lied my whole life, Pete. I've lied to myself and to you and to everyone, my family, everyone. I've lied, and I've practiced it. So it's
right, and you're good at it, right? So we're good at these things. We get good at the things we practice. So if we're one of these people that are over anxious, or more anxious than we want to be, and we continue retelling that same story, right? On this and that. Right. I was working with a psychologist today, and it's interesting because a lot of therapists come to therapy, but I'm working with a psychologist today, and one of the strategies I taught him, he goes, "I'm this or I'm that. I'm an alcoholic. I'm this, and this is not to. This is a little different from an AA type meeting." I say, speak to yourself in third person. And this person's name was Ryan. And it feels differently if you speak to yourself in third person versus I am, because it's not who you are. It's a strategy you use to quell an emotion. It's part of you, right? It's part of the experience. You're looking for a new experience, a long-term solution. So how do I know that I'm doing that? Well, when I know that knot's not there, or if I can feel that knot release, when my therapist or my sponsor or my wife is not sitting with me, then I know I've made some progress.
Yeah.
I actually had again, when I said I drank a lot, and then I kind of figured out on some level.
You got married too.
Yeah, well, let me put it. My wife figured out on some level, right? So anyway, years after that, I had a buddy who this guy just never quit drinking, and my son was going through a heart transplant, and he was on the list, and I was like, I told my wife, I said I'm gonna go out, hang out with Jack a little bit. This was happy hour Thursday nights. And we're closing the bars down every Thursday for about a month, and I think we only lived up the street from the bar, I guess fortunately and unfortunately, right? And something stuck. I was looking at my son, and he actually, my other son has seizures. He had a seizure, and I'm looking at him, and I'm putting my sheet, and I'm like, what am I doing, right? I had to have that moment of brevity and clarity. So my phone's ringing. And you probably know me a little bit, Jeff, but I'm more of a lethargist, if a little lazy on some things. And my phone's ringing. It's my friend Jack, and it's Thursday night. And he's ready to go out. I just watch it ring, And my wife is watching me. She goes, "You're not going to answer the phone?" I go, "No." He said, "You're too lazy to be an alcoholic, aren't you?" I go, "Yeah. I would rather hang out here with my kids, be with my son when he's having a seizure, than go drinking with a friend, a lifelong friend." You talk about values and meaning. When you find, and I work on a values, evidence-based type of values thing too. I'd be happy to send you all this stuff, but the problem sending you all guys all the stuff is that, if you don't have someone to facilitate it, or a therapist, or someone who knows, kind of look at it, you kind of like a winging in the dark. So, just understanding that, when you can pause, right? I didn't even use the word mindfulness. I just sat there and watched someone I cared about and loved struggling, and I'm really thinking about going out to have a beer.
Yeah, you just ripped the hearts out of I'm guessing almost everyone that's listening, because
that's exposure therapy, audio exposure therapy, I guess.
It's true. It makes me just think, things that I almost did or did that it just makes me sick to my stomach that I put friggin' beer ahead of, the safety or the friendship or the time with, it's really, I mean, it's embarrassing, Pete. It's embarrassing. It's shameful.
Right. So that's the part of the embarrassing and the shame, that is the key right there. That's the underlying stuff, right? The anxiety, the embarrassment, the shame, that critic in ourselves, that needs to work. So when I notice that stuff, I notice that feeling, allowing it to flow through. Actually, again, I do a lot of metaphor work, feeling what that feeling actually feels like, and then I drop underneath that feeling, and I drop under, and then usually what happens is, okay, I let it go. I don't, because the longer I hold on to that shame, the less of a dad I can be. Right? The longer I hold on to that shame, the probability, if I'm a betting guy, probability I might grab a can of beer.
Yeah,
right?
you know what? One of the things that helped me, someone said, you know, when I'm shaming myself or ripping myself or, you know, you loser, whatever, or you idiot, you did it again, is what would I say to someone else? What would I say to my, you know, my son that did that? Would I
Right.
say, you loser, you piece of dirt? What, you know, what is your problem? You stink? No, I wouldn't say that at all. I would be constructive and understanding, and let's fix it.
Right.
But to
Right.
myself,
What would you say to your young self
yeah.
if you could meet your young self?
Oh yeah, exactly. I'd say cheat and hold him because he's out to make you look bad in front of a lot of people at Penn State and hurt your feelings, which you did. But that's another story. That's another thing on the guy. So we're getting down. I want to go a little over because if you don't mind hanging for a few.
No, that's fine. Yeah.
Because we lost 10 minutes and Tom can cut this thing down cut out all the humiliating part of me talking to myself. But so someone that is new and we you know, you hit great stuff, but for someone that's new, and there's a lot of us here that, you know, I think I'm long-term for a lot at 11 months, which is nothing. But talking to people that are new, that are just trying to get through this week or the first month, you know, it's like, you know, I'm not worried about being sober 5 years from now. I just want to get through this weekend and get through, you know, how could I even think about not drinking through the football playoffs, through the Super Bowl? Well, it didn't work for me last year at the Super Bowl. That was my last big blowout, but bad example. But you know what I'm saying? So what is the shorter term? Give me a plan of action. The shorter term. How do I get started with all this?
All right. So if you look at that map thing that I kind of sent, the to-do list.
Okay, that
right?
is for people that aren't on. That is posted on the Facebook Live page, and we're going to have it in the chat. Pete's comments, any of the people he referenced, all that stuff's going to be on there, but that will be in the chat. But there's a one-page thing that I can't share on the screen. Tom hasn't taught me that feature yet, but that's what Pete's talking to, and that will be available.
Anyway, yeah, this was developed by Daniel Moran. I don't know if any of you guys ever watched the show Hoarders. He's renowned in my world. I do something called acceptance and commitment therapy, which is one of my go-to models. And so he's done probably 40 of the Hoarder shows. And this is what this guy does. And so he looks at this, you know, and the way he described the show is that we went in, we meet the people, we have 48 hours. Or this woman's going to lose her house. Her kids are going to be taken away. All these different things. So this type of stuff, and again, these are just ideas, right? I'm not providing therapy. These are just ideas. So on this mindful access plan, it basically talks about presence. It talks about accepting, you know, I know they do that in AA, you know, accepting that, admitting that you're, you know, have a problem with alcohol, noticing what's going on. But the to-do list, to your question, Jeff, is like, I always recommend having a short to-do list. What are 3 things that I can do right now? What can I do right now? So if someone is, you know, white knuckling it, what can they do right now? Again, a person, a place, you know, that could be a church, that could be a friend, you know, that could be someone who passed away, that could be going to a cemetery in the city instead of turning into that convenience store, you know. Or because the most difficult thing is most people have, whether they've experienced or not, you know, with substance, is the quiet time. And I think your guest you had on the other thing, she said she has to have something in her hand at all times.
Yeah, that's me.
Yeah.
I'm very much, yeah.
Right. You know, and so, you know, so having those 3 go-to things on a to-do list is required. Because I think your question for me is again, as a coach and a therapist and someone who, you know, I teach people, you know, how to change your mind, really how to mind their change and how to kind of change your life. That's kind of like my mantra type of thing. I do really short, type of easy to remember things. And the first does is change your mind, right? But you have to have a platform of things that you can do, and just a couple things, right? So again, with AA, they would be the sponsor, or in your case would be your wife Elizabeth, right?
Mm-hmm.
Carrying pictures of your kids, right? You know, I do something called touchstones everywhere in my house. You know, in between because of COVID, I'm working out of my home right now. You know, in between sessions, I take my therapist hat off. I imagine I'm wearing a therapist hat because I'm not a therapist. I'm just trained in therapy. I'm Pete. I take that off. I go down and hug my kids in between sessions. I make my kids breakfast every day. You know, so I'm always touching the things that are important in my life. Even though I might have a thought or feel like I am exhausted. Because some of the stuff that I do, some of the work I do, especially with really deep, like sexual abuse, people that have experienced a lot of sexual abuse, family sexual abuse and stuff, dads going to prison forever, on and on and on, mentally wearing. So I can have a thought or I can have a feel that I am just exhausted and it's easier just to walk to my bedroom and lay down for 2 hours. But that's not what I value. Even though I love my naps, I love my kids more than my naps. So I'm going to go down and spend a little bit of time with them, check in. That's the touchstone. And then check out. Get my head straight again. Reset. So we're constantly, it's just like, again, football. Every single play, you go back to your huddle. What do you want to do now? That didn't work. Right? But it's having again, just a few things that you can do. And again, I'm talking about those first couple of weeks, right? I'm not talking about therapy or.
Yeah, I just, there's the, I love what you're saying. I also, they're also, and I'm not a doctor. I know you're not a physical doctor, and I don't ever want to, I will always defer to going to rehab, detox, whatever, because going through that is dangerous. I mean, people die from that.
Yep.
Don't ever, everything we're talking about is not a first step. This is support once the ball is rolling, at least in my opinion. I don't ever want anyone to quit drinking today because of what they hear on Sober Talk. That's not the case. I needed rehab. I know a ton of people that do, and I know a lot of people, well, I don't know them, but I've heard plenty of stories of people that have died because they did not. They tried to do it themselves. That's not something to mess around. So there is, do you agree, Pete? There is a physical part of this factor as well. That's got to be, and I think they say 7 days to get it out of your system, to come down. Some people, I've talked to people that have been in medical rehab for a month or so getting there. I talked to a guy today whose numbers were so down, they had to just bring him up very slowly, and he was on death's door. So those are things this is not about that first, the detoxing. This does not apply to that. I think I'm safe in saying that what we're talking about here is
you're right. It's a physiological, and again, we would call it an addiction, right? In the medical world, right? There's also an emotional component to it. There's a sensory component to it, just like, those
right.
knots in your stomach. There's a relational component. I'm not good enough, or I'm better than everybody and I can handle this, right? That delusional part. There's all these different dynamics that come into it. So you're right. There is a physical connection to that because it makes us feel a certain way. Again, all of that at the end of the day, right? And I know you said you're 11 months out now, Jeff.
Yeah.
Right. So, does it ever go? I think a lot of people expect things just to go away, but just our physiology tells us that that what I teach people is how to relate to their feelings better.
Well, I think that's
how to experience that stuff in an easier way. Is it always easy? No. But again, I'm waiting for that perfect person to come walking through my door. I haven't met it because everybody envisions everybody else's life better.
Yeah. You know,
Because
it's like,
easier to
for
beat
me,
yourself.
it's like trying to eat healthy. I can quit eating Domino's pizza. 3 years from now, I might not eat any Domino's pizza, but when I drive past a Domino's, I'm still going to look at it and say, you know what, that looks pretty good. I'm
Oh,
never
yeah.
going to lose the taste of, or the, the thought that eating that pizza would be, I'm not going to do it. I'm not craving it as much, but I'm never going to deny myself that it would taste damn good if I ate it.
Right. It just, again, if you practice the stuff, I think, I'm not sure if there's actually an answer to that question you're talking about, unless you have resources,
Yeah.
right? Unless you have some resources. That's almost a non-answerable question. And here's why: is we're all so different. Because when you said, for example, they say it's 7 days, I'm like, well, who's they? I'm more worried about you.
Yeah. True.
What do you need? What is your experience? We're on day 9 now. Well, you told me day 7. No, I'm not going to set that. I'm not even going to set that bar. Where are you at right now?
Yep.
Right. Not where your neighbor's at or your uncle was at. Where are you? And how do you want to be in this world?
Yeah.
And then let's build a bridge there. This is where you are. How do you want to be? Right. And that's the processing piece. But again, if we don't have some form of interruption, I think you had said, actually, I listened to one of your things. You had said a bowl of soup.
Yeah, I can eat soup again for the first time because my hand's not shaking as much, or
Right.
like it did.
Right. Yeah. So
I had
these
to,
little things.
I wore the color. I would call ahead and find out what they were serving that day, and that's how I chose what color shirt to wear.
Right.
Lobster
right.
bisque, I went with kind of an orangish salmon color. Pea soup, I had an off green. You got to plan for those things.
Well, that's my point, right? You create these, again, metaphors, right? And if you create these positive metaphors, and that Melissa Tears I was talking about, she said, and she was a heroin addict, and so years ago, and she got into this stuff because she gets the same euphoria. She just does hypnosis type of stuff,
Yeah.
right? So her viewpoint is this: she goes, we make this stuff up, right? There's a physiological response, and this happens to our bodies. We imagine this stuff, and when I hear stories, I can't, I won't, blah blah blah. Those are just narratives. These are stories we keep retelling ourselves. Let's start to rewrite another story. But you can't start to rewrite a story until you put that pen down.
Yeah. Yeah, I got you. That's
You got to open a new
one.
notebook. Yeah.
Yep.
So again, I would always recommend someone initially to come up with 3 different resources, whether they're internal or external. External would be a friend. Internal would be like, it's more difficult to actually come up with more internal resources generally.
Right.
But so some people have those things. It could be, a grandmother that, sat with you when you were a little kid. Imagine you're sitting with your grandmother. What would she tell you?
I think the key, what you're saying is having, and I heard something on one of the talks you were making. I actually plagiarized it and took full credit for it. Don't, of course. But you said something that really hit home with me with, having a playbook. A coach does not go into a game without knowing that if it's 1st and long, what plays to use. If it's 4th and short, what plays to use. A chef doesn't go into a big evening where he's cooking a big meal without having his ingredients ready, having his list, his instructions, his recipes ready, so that when he finds out what people are looking for, he knows how to, fix the situation. So those are kind of the things of just, and this is, Pete, I need to get rolling here. I want to thank you and ask you to come back down the road. I need to call Tom and check in with him, but this is all, I love this stuff, and I got we're going to post this stuff, but that my recipe book or my playbook is, and I think I'm on the right page with you, is what is going to work for Jeff. I think my playbook's going to be different than Carl on here, is different than Tom, is different from whoever. I've got to find the plays that work for me in those situations, and whether it is whatever it is, that's what it all comes down to, in my opinion, being prepared. When I'm not prepared, I'm preparing to fail.
Right, and when you have a plan of action, right, you have flexibility within that plan.
So
right, so again, when you and I talk about football, blocking me, I was a strong guy, but if you applied leverage
or held,
or held, but if you held and you didn't get caught, you win.
No,
right,
it's true. It's true.
Someone with a drinking problem, someone with an alcohol problem, they want to use whatever leverage points they have, but they got to know the leverage points.
Yep, that's a great point. All right, buddy. Well, look, we'll be in touch. Thank you so much. I am going to put some of those links, and I'm going to put if anyone wants to get a hold of you, your info should be in there somewhere. If it's not, I'll make sure it is. Okay. I do believe you take credit cards over the phone. No, I'm just. But if anyone's got anything,
not from you, because I can't verify. But
that's because with the checks that Tom pays me, or the Well, the one, and it's still bouncing down I-75 somewhere. But anyways, all right. Hey, thanks so much, Pete. And I'm going to give Tom a call. Hope to have you back, and really appreciate everything you brought tonight. Okay.
All right. Keep going, man.
All right.
The recovery.
Thanks, buddy. Right. Take care.
Take care. Bye-bye.
All right. Let's check in with Tom, because I know there's a lot of words that he probably heard that neither of us understood.
Hey, buddy.
Hey, so I got a list of about 48 words to use that I don't know the meaning of. Can I send those to you off air? And
yeah.
So no, I was good stuff. It's there's so many different avenues to go. I think it's just a matter of finding the path that works for you.
Now, am I on there or off?
Yeah,
no,
you're on. You're live, so don't criticize me. No, this is
no, there are.
This is go time. I'm glad you were paying attention to the show. When I said I'm now going to call Tom, and I hear people.
I was in the restroom.
Oh God, that's just.
There's a lot of people. There's a lot of people get a lot out of him. A lot of people will think he doesn't have a clue. It just it just depends why it works for you.
Exactly. It's grab what you can. It's fill your bag with your tools. I love it. It's but that's why we're here.
Absolutely.
So anyways, I had said at the beginning, I don't know if you were on when I was just talking to myself, but trying to get as much as we can on the Sober Talk page as far as comments, yay, nays, thoughts. Joel just hit 99 days, which is freaking amazing.
That's great.
That's awesome. Congrats, Joel. But questions to have that we can ask down the road or deal with, things you'd like to see, thoughts about.
Yeah, that's really important. It's really important. Yeah, because I want to. It's going to get really easy for you and I to get caught up in one. Next thing you know, it's like this is like a boring meeting. Not saying meetings are boring, but we have to keep it keep it fresh and different. Like your last guest, just keep
well,
keep
we need.
On
I need people. I need to, and this can come through Tom, but I'm doing Tuesdays and Thursdays. I need I know I need to hear from people that want to be on the show. I want to talk to as many people as we can and keep that flowing, because like you said, there's going to be stuff that people say that doesn't apply to me, and there's going to be something someone says it's like, wow, that's what I needed to hear. That's how we grow to collectively, And there's not a situation that anyone on this that's going to be watching this or that's on this now that nothing anyone's faced that we collectively as a group haven't faced. So this is a resource. We got to rely on each other. And so anyways, that's great. Well, I don't know what I do want to make an announcement.
I do want to make an announcement about tomorrow night. Tomorrow night I'm having a new, like when people are watching live, they can text me their phone number. I have a new phone. It's a burner phone from my drug dealing days, and I'm teasing. But there's a new phone. I got a new plan, and part of the plan I was able to add another phone for like $5 a month. So I've got this new phone that tomorrow, when I'm live, I'll have they can text me their number and a topic to talk about, because that's my big issues. Yep. Constantly trying to find speakers and people. There's a lot of people who are going to be joining in who want to talk. They don't know how to get a hold of us, but we're having some growing pains. So you think earlier was just a reboot?
Once I rebooted, once I rebooted, I didn't touch anything other than power buttons. So that was it. But I'll talk to you off air about getting that too, because I would like to. The problem with chat for me is it can go by so fast sometimes that I miss a comment. And who was real quick? Someone else just had Ted Watson just hit 100 tomorrow also, which is freaking fantastic. Triple digits. That's huge.
I'm approaching 6 months. Today was a travel day for me, so I'm kind of out of a little bit. But thanks for covering, man. You're crushing it. And no matter how much people say they like you more than me, remember I got more hair.
Well, I got 4 kids, so they're they with all their friends, and I'm dishing out the money I owe for all the.
I see Elizabeth. I see your daughter constantly commenting about sweets and chocolate. Do you have a problem at home? Were you the one eating? Is she talking about her? Or is she talking about you?
She is. This all came down that night when when she had a beer and a half and we were leaving a pizza joint. This is right when COVID was starting, and I said, "Aren't you going to finish your beer?" And she said, "No, I'm good." And I said, "How do you feel right now?" And she said, "I feel great. It's." And I said, "But wouldn't you feel even better if you finished that thing?"
Yeah.
And she said, "No, I'd feel bloated." And I said, I've never said, "No, I'm good for the rest of this beer because I'm bloated." I've never uttered those words in my life. And she said, and she doesn't have a problem with alcohol. She's the greatest drinker I know because she can stop when she wants. But she said, she loves, chocolate chips or chocolate ice cream or whatever. And she said, all I was thinking, I don't want to be too full so I can get home and have some ice cream when I get home. She didn't want to be full on beer so she could eat ice cream. And I said, get out of my house. You're not even, you have no idea what alcohol, she doesn't have.
Wouldn't you love to be wired that way? Wouldn't you love to be just where it was just okay to have a.
Yeah, but you know what? I said this summer, which I caught myself going, you know what? I wish I didn't have a drinking problem because if I wasn't an alcoholic, I would be pounding beer right now. That would be so great. I was serious. That was a legit, and I thought, this is crazy. I wish I wasn't an alcoholic so I could drink alcoholically. Oh, yeah. It was like then I could just drink as much as I wanted because it wouldn't be a problem because I wouldn't be an alcoholic. Yeah, that's awesome. I just started laughing at myself, but God, how many reasons or excuses we give us, sir? I don't know. Hey, thanks, Tom, and I will be listening tomorrow, and then I'll be back on Thursday night. And
yes, and I got on Friday night, I got James Sweezy coming back in. Tomorrow I have Josh Graves. Josh did an incredible share couple months ago. We're having him back on tomorrow, so should be a good show.
That's
good
awesome.
Group.
All right, buddy, and just to follow in the there we go. Well,
there we go,
seem like Tom Mabe. All right, thanks everyone, and hit the chat. Let's all learn and keep things going. Tool up, everyone. Tool up. Have a great night. We'll see ya.